Hello, everybody. It's Lisa here with the XTRAcredits All-Stars Show, and I've got Deborah Gardner with me. So we're just going to take a couple minutes to quickly share on our Facebook feeds what is the show today. And let me just write it quickly and share it so that we can get it into our news feeds. All right. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Lisa.
Excellent. Well, you know what? We talked to all kinds of different all-stars and all different avenues in business here on the XTRAcredits All-Star Show. So for those of you who don't know me, I help you turn your education into profits. And so today we're going to be talking with the famous Miss Deborah Gardner, who is a true trailblazer, considering that you were the very first female TV broadcaster at CBS Sports. Wow. So tell me about yourself and how did that ever happen?
Oh, that goes way back in college when I actually was able to be an athlete all the way through college. And being an athlete, you don't really are allowed to go out and get a job. And since my dad was a basketball coach, everybody thought I knew all about basketball. So I ended up doing all the PA announcing in the Activity Center at Arizona State University, which I considered my very, very first speech. And there's a whole signature story behind it that the first game that I did was, of course, against the rivalries. They always start out with the rivalries, which was U of A. So we had the Arizona State Sun Devils and the University of Arizona Wildcats. 14,000 people in the stands because it was a sold-out situation. And boy, it was really kind of cool to put on that headset, those big bulky headsets back then, to actually announce the game. And of course, I was so excited and the exhilaration and everything going through my whole brain that I actually said, "Welcome Arizona State Wildcats." So I did a huge mistake of calling the wrong mascot to my own home team. And I was pretty well booed on my very first, as I called my speech, yeah. But that's okay because CBS picked it up and can see some kind of potential in me. And it turned out that I was one of the very first trailblazers in sports at that time.
Wow. Wow. Who'd have thought that a big mistake and a big blunder would have turned into a massively successful career?
Well, I guess they remembered me. So.
Sure. Well,
so I guess, there was always a happy ending to something, but it was a short-lived career because it wasn't very lucrative for women to be in, giving football scores back then.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see that the industry has turned that around today.
Yeah. And you didn't just stop at basketball, though, and sports. You went on to be an amazing swimmer. Let's talk a little bit about that for people who don't know about that.
Yeah, well, I did that all the way through college. The sad thing is my only shot was the 1980 Olympics. We know that the boycott took place then, so it was a little devastating for a 21-year-old at that time. But I got caught up in the corporate world for about 10 years, and then I ended up getting back in the water and very competitive in the Masters program, and now thinking about switching over to open water with some goals in mind, like the English Channel. So wow. There's always something new and different, and that's what I love about swimming.
Yeah. So you're seriously considering swimming the English Channel?
Well, let's say I've got the manual sitting right here from my good friend Julie Lewis, who just attempted it 2 weeks ago. So she's trying to talk me into it. So we'll see.
Wow.
I'll definitely let you know.
I've got goosebumps. That's crazy. Well, good luck.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's amazing. So from there now, Deborah, let's talk a little bit about your work today. So you kind of have two channels. You do a lot of work, and obviously you're a meeting professional, so you know a lot about that particular industry. We're going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. But let's talk a little bit about the work the main work that you do. You help people break through barriers. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What does that look like for the average Joe? The person, out there looking to break through barriers, whether it's in business, in life, in their career?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Breakthrough is pretty much finding that that crossover on how to get from the problem to the solution. And a lot of times we talk about in sales training, negotiating training, or even any of the keynotes I talk about, it's all about, stating the problem and stating the solution. But what about that middle ground? How do you get over that threshold to make that, to decide if that's even the decision you want to make and if that's going to be the right avenue to take? So I kind of clarify what that looks like, that middle part. And I utilize a lot of my swimming analogies like streamlining. How do you streamline to make those type of decisions and if it's going to be the right decision? So I'm not only taking the problem solution, but how to get through that threshold and what does that look like?
Yeah. And so what is your biggest success story to date in regards to a breakthrough that you've made? I mean, you don't have to name any names or anything like that, but, your biggest success story. Walk us through what that looked like.
You mean for a company or organization that I worked with?
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. But the best part is when I can hear about the feedback. And I think as speakers, we're always looking for what the feedback is on the results. And when I hear the results of what I've been able to help them bring to the table, it's astounding. I mean, I love the percentages. They'll say, we've been able to increase our sales, 35% over the year before. I mean, that's the payoff right there. And a lot of times we don't hear what the client's results are from you bringing your services to it. But with Breakthrough, I do, because everything is measured. Everything is all about the ROI, and that's what they're looking for today. And if you talk that lingo, the chances of you getting hired are going to be even better. But it's all about the results. And while you're with them too, whether it's consulting or coaching or keynoting or doing a workshop, when they can see the results while you're with them, that's a great momentum for them.
Absolutely. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, if we don't get a result, then what's the point of putting anything into action to begin with?
Isn't that the truth?
But I think too, though, now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Deborah, but I do believe that, it's one thing to get results. It's another thing to create the milestones to the goal to get the end result that you're really looking for. Because sometimes I would suspect that whether it's in business or in life, people don't know what the results should be. And so they're having a hard time evaluating what should be the milestones and the goal. Correct?
Right. Very true. Because majority of people wing it.
Yeah.
And I always say, you wing it, you're going to get wing it results.
Yeah.
So which results do you want?
Yeah, exactly. And so part of your job as their mentor and their consultant and their coach is to really guide them and navigate them through to figure out what is the end result that we're looking for, and then step back and figure out what are those milestones and how do we achieve that goal, correct?
Correct. And it's just, again, I always utilize my swimming analogy because most people like to talk about sports, but it's all about slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
You have to really, everybody wants instant gratification today. Yeah. Well, there is no statistics or data that prove that instant gratification creates success. Yeah. There isn't any. Yeah. So you have to really explain to your customer, your client, slow down to speed up. Let's take one step at a time. Let's make this relationship a long-term process than just, in and out and we're done.
Yeah. I think that's so true because, we're in an instant society now, right?
Yeah.
We're instant. Yeah. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn. We want instant information. We want instant results. And we're upset when it doesn't happen instantly because we're in an instant society. Absolutely.
Correct.
So now,
correct.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, so part of my tactics is to explain to a client, be patient, slow down and let's take this one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people call you the pit bull in a skirt. So I want to hear that story because it sounds like...
Oh, that's too funny. I try to get away from that, but I can't. It actually came from my clients, my Fortune 500 clients.
Yeah.
You know, as big as industries are, they're small and they talk. And they all talked about going, you know, Deborah, what we call you is the pit bull in the skirt. So I credit them, my clients there, because I never really saw myself as that way, but it's true because I'm not the type of presenter or consultant that comes in and says, here's the 10 steps to sales or here's the 10 steps to be successful. I actually get in their face and challenge them to think and act. Today, you know, audiences they don't want to be spectators. They want to be participants. And so I make them, I'm not a stage person. I'm in their face. I make sure that, you know, I get in front of them and I for some reason always wore skirts, and that's how they came up with it.
So now I know you're married. So
yes.
Is that your husband's nickname as well? My little pit bull in the skirt?
No kidding, right?
Well, and you know, being a pit bull is part of what you need to be in the meetings and event industry as well, right? Because, you know, let's talk a little bit more about that particular industry, because I know I've got a lot of professional speakers and professionals who are looking to actually step into the speaking stage. And so sharing some highlights on what's happening in the meeting industry. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What is the number one challenge that a meeting professional in today's day is faced with?
Oh, that's an easy one. Today, you know, after being in the industry for 27 years, it changes every day. But what's really sticking now, compared to what it used to be, like technology, today it's about safety and security. It really is. And one of the biggest threats in the meetings industry is the safety of those they serve. And it's not just about active shooters, hurricanes, or drone privacy. There are much bigger threats that are coming up on the horizon, and the meetings industry is very concerned about it.
And so what are some of those threats, Deborah?
Well, first of all, the risk management plans that meeting and event professionals are dealing with, a lot of them don't have them. As a matter of fact, 51% of them do not have a risk management plan. And that's making them nervous because they need to get that in place before their next meeting tomorrow. And those that do have it, they're dusting them off their shelves and trying to revamp. So right now they're scrambling to try to get that part done so they know what to do when their next meeting and event comes about, which could be, again, tomorrow. Another one, which a lot of people don't realize, and especially in the meetings industry, in the speaking industry, is something like human sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. Human sex trafficking is huge right now. And as I go along to speak to many of the NSA chapters, I'll pinpoint in their own state what it actually looks like and what's going on in their backyard. See, one trafficker can make up to $250,000 a year, and they usually have what is called a stable of them, about 10 of them at one time, and that can be boys and girls. And it's not a matter of where this is happening or when. It's happening right in front of our eyes, because they're saying, you know, as long as there's internet, a hotel, and a freeway, chances are human sex trafficking is happening. And that's where meetings take place. That's where speakers go to these meetings. So meeting professionals are really concerned about this, because the trend coming back is bringing your families to the meetings and the conferences.
Right.
And so with that happening, there's a concern that the meeting professionals are having within their conferences, the participants, and there could be a lot of legal status that could happen. So a meeting professional out of Toronto in 2017 started this campaign within the meetings industry, and it's taken off like wildfires. So for a speaker, what does that got to do with them? Well, they could be their extra eyes when they're on site, and meeting professionals would like to know that speakers are very well aware of this, because it's happening while the meeting is going on.
Yeah.
And if speakers, and for example, if a speaker can, walk into an elevator and see that, two adults, two children, and the children are not playing on their phone like they usually are, or asking questions or being playful. Instead, they're being quiet. They're holding on to their wallet. There's something going on with that compared to the way they usually act. And that needs to be reported.
Interesting. I didn't really know what the challenge was going to be, truly, but that's not something I would have never, ever have known. But of course, because I don't live in that industry, so, I guess I'm the speaker coming in, but I would never have made, so thank you very much, truly, for bringing that awareness.
Yeah, it's a matter of being aware of it. And the reason why, and the other, here's a good example. There is a app, Traffic Cam, and the beauty of this app, if you let your meeting professional know that you've got this, again, it's all about bonding. And if you have that app, as soon as you walk into your hotel room and take pictures of that room, that would help the organization quite a bit, because a lot of victims can't really say where they're at. But if they take a selfie and they take a picture and all of a sudden, they can match it up to the curtains, the bed, the furniture, they can find out where that victim is. And right now there's over 254,000 hotel room pictures that are being taken. So something as simple as that, you can end up being a hero for.
Wow. Well, and I would think, just off of the top of my head here, that would be something that you would get the hotelier industry involved with, and starting to build a data bank of images of different hotel rooms.
They are. Yeah. They are. Unfortunately, the websites are not as always updated as renovations of hotels, just like our websites aren't as updated as our headshots. But it does give a more of a real-time status with the app. But yeah, it's amazing, something like that outside our industry, even the meetings industry. But yet it is part of it, especially with families coming back. You just never know if, something would happen to those families.
Yeah. So outside of your regular, you got to make sure you got a headshot, you got a sizzle reel, you got all these things for the meeting professional, but this is something that really resonates with the meeting professional, is making sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so what would be other challenges that they face?
They chase, technology, it can be a concern because of, terrorist attacks and things like that. When it comes to safety and security, the other challenge that they're starting to discover is how much a speaker, how they can benefit by bringing a speaker on their risk management crisis team, being part of that team. They're really finding out that, because here's the bottom line is, it doesn't matter if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually to, more meetings. It's just part of what's going on in the world. And this all started, way back when. So it's been happening. But what they're finding is with speakers with the microphone in their hand are able to actually do something or say something. If, for example, I was at the Biltmore Hotel in Phoenix, Arizona, watching a good friend of mine from the stage. Well, the fire alarm went off in the middle of her presentation, and she froze. Everybody just sat there. The meeting professional had to come from the back of the room to the lectern and make the announcement, okay, everybody just go out these doors. And so that really resonated with me right there, going, oh my God, she's got the microphone in her hand. She should have said something. The country singer, Jason Aldean, he was on stage during the Las Vegas shooting. And he even said, I regret not being able to help and protect my fans. I should have said something. I had the microphone in my hand.
Taking control of the audience in that moment.
Yeah. But, it was unexpected, and you get caught off guard, just like my girlfriend did. But yet we need to start ponying up to the fact that we have the microphone in our hand and we can help. And so it's a conversation that needs to be done with the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. What will happen in the event of, that's very good advice.
Good.
in the industry today, there's trends. There's always trends in everything that we do, no matter what. So what is the hottest trend currently right now in the meetings and event industry?
The hottest trends right now is trying to balance, technology. There's a lot of different types of technology out there that's being introduced to the meetings industry, like HoloLens, drones. There's 3D versions from the attendees' phones. There's all kinds of different types of technology, registration technologies coming in. Of course, they want a lot of technology being utilized during presentations as well. So technology is something that is a huge trend, is just trying to stay up with it and what's coming in and how to afford it.
Yeah.
So it seems as though the trend is that they want technology involved, but it's going to be, again, it's going to cost money, which really should give us a heads up, because that's where our fee is going. Yeah. And that's not something we want to have happen. But a lot of the technology being introduced still has to go out to the mass of the consumers' adoption, testing out there yet before it can be approved. But it is there, and a lot of it is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I work with a lot of associations at XTRAcredits, and one of the biggest things that I hear from the associations is that they love the technology. The problem is that they're resource shy to implement, and like you said, budget constraints. And so then they have to extend that fee onto the registrant, and that's not always the most favorable way of doing it, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very true. And even with just security in general, there's going to be some hidden fees, because the meetings industry needs to bring that into their meetings. So once you start seeing security guards or things like that, speakers have to start questioning, is that where my fee's going?
Yeah, I always find it interesting when I go to events. When we go to a live event, to a concert or to a hockey game, or where we go through security. We get our bags checked. We physically get checked, make sure there's no guns or whatever. But very seldom have I ever gone to a conference where I'm actually physically being checked. And I think that is a big thing in risk management.
That will change.
Exactly. As an audience member or as a speaker, I want to know when I'm up there on stage, I'm safe. That somebody isn't, coming after me while I'm on stage, just like I'm no movie star or country singer by any stretch of the imagination, but that's as important and I think people have to realize it's one thing to be able to serve the meeting planner and the professional and the events and the audience, but it's another to serve yourself when you're and people forget that.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. And there's a the University of Mississippi does a study for the National Center for Spectator Sports Safety and Security. It's called NCS4. And they said that the way they predicted it is, it doesn't matter if it's even a concert or it's an active shooter that's there, or even a fire alarm in a ballroom, the audience still reacts the same way. 10% of people will be very active and help others to the exit and help them out. 80% of people will sit in their seats until you say something. Yeah. And then 10% of people, they won't even do anything. They won't even leave or anything, even when you tell them to, probably because they're still packing up their laptop. Yeah. But
or grabbing their phone.
Yeah. So because people are not used to being interrupted in what they're, doing at a conference, that it does take a tug and pull to get them to react and to act. So it's not only just us as speakers to present what we need to talk about safety and security. It's a matter of really being convincing that, hey, just because there's a fire alarm, everybody get up and let's start moving.
Absolutely. And I think too, people are afraid. So when you're afraid and you don't know what to do, you don't do anything.
Right.
It's kind of like in business. when your analysis by paralysis, you're afraid to do anything, so you don't do nothing, and then you're stuck.
Totally.
Very good.
Very true.
There's always there's certain things that you have to do as a professional speaker to serve a meeting professional initially. So, there's RFPs that there's a number of different ways to try to get on stage. What would you say is the most effective way for a professional speaker to get on a stage?
To get on a stage when there's a safety and security situation?
No, just in general. They're trying to secure speaking jobs.
Oh, yeah. Well, it comes down to relationships.
Yeah.
It really does. When we talked earlier about being patient and slow down, it's the same thing when you're trying to get up on stage. I think that you really have to build the relationship. Bottom line, the meetings industry is a relationship-based industry. And if they like you, they're going to book you. But there are some, techniques and tips and ways of doing that. One is just the terminology in itself. And I've been so proud of you saying meeting professional because they want to be a professional. When I talk to, again, the NSA chapters and at Influence, I always say, stop calling me a meeting planner because you said it earlier, they wear different hats. They have other things to do today. And here's the thing, the role of the meeting so-called planner is changing. A lot of admin are coming into this role where they have other duties than just planning meetings. So I believe that we really need to look at a different role of what they do and understand what they do. Martha Stewart, a couple years ago, was the opening keynoter for a big, huge convention of decision makers. Yeah. And throughout the speech, she kept calling them party planners. And so you can imagine who had the lowest evaluation score. And so, and
Martha's knowing your audience or not knowing your audience.
Right, that definitely. But I'm finding that in the speaking world, we don't know, who our clients truly are, and they are not meeting planners. There's so much more. But Martha's not the only one. When these so-called party planners go out into the real world, 69% of people say, meeting planner. But yet 75% of these so-called party planners believe that that's not even part of their role.
Yeah, their role.
Yeah. And it's not so much the title as it is the perception that's been a challenge for many, many years. I mean, think about it. As speakers, do you want to be called a public speaker or a professional speaker?
Yeah, absolutely.
Big difference.
So it's a big difference because meeting planner is a keyword in marketing.
Right.
Public speaker is a key word in marketing, but it doesn't actually define the role of the particular person.
Exactly. And so I think it's very important for us to get the terminology right because that is what's going to help you bond with them. They accept when speakers say meeting planner because they figure that's all we know. Yeah. But boy, wouldn't you shock them if you said meeting professional?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, it's part of our obligation. And I don't just mean to meeting professionals. I mean in general. When I'm building a relationship with somebody, it's my obligation to them to understand them and to really know who they are. That's how a relationship and the foundation of a relationship. It doesn't start with what I want immediately. It starts with really truly understanding somebody and making that connection and showing them that you're genuinely interested in them first. Right.
So here's just a breakdown to help somebody, so we can clarify this a little bit. A meeting professional, what they really do, they have duties like a coordinator, supervisor, they're strategic, they're project manager, they're operational, they're logistical, marketing, as you mentioned earlier. But they're the ones that deal with 10 rooms or more. But they also, what we only know them as, organizing workshops and general sessions over several days. That's all we know them as.
Yeah. I think too. while you're catching your, I think people need to understand that there's actual a certification. You don't just decide one day you're going to be a meeting professional. You actually go through a rigorous role of criteria and curriculum and educate yourself to become a meeting professional.
Yeah, you really do. A lot of people think, they can be one, but until you really understand what it entails, it's pretty detailed. And here's the difference too. A meeting professional is different than an event professional. A lot of people feel that it could be, together, and I hear speakers and I read articles from speakers that they're not getting that terminology correct. An event professional provides a one-day event for everyone to attend. It could be a golf outing, it could be a wedding, it could be a fundraiser, it could be a trade show, and there's a lot of times we present at events, many times. So just understanding those two pieces of terminology can give you an idea that, hey, there is a difference, and when you approach it right, they're going to have a lot more respect for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that a lot of people struggle with or don't really know, and I see it all the time when I'm vetting for faculty at XTRAcredits, and I'm looking at, authors and influencers and subject matter experts, and I look at their websites, part of my due diligence. And one of the things that I notice quite commonly, is I know that they have social media feeds, but I don't see it on their website. B, I don't see their contact information forefront up. How is somebody supposed to hire you if you don't even have your information there immediately? Why do I need to scroll through 7 pages to find out your phone number? And third is, I can't even see the picture of you because you've got everything else that you do, but there's who are you?
Yes.
I would suspect that those are some of the things that a meeting professional looks for. What else do they initially look for on, when they're looking to determine whether or not this particular person is somebody that they want to have their audience be captivated by?
Well, if you're going to have a page for them in the navigation bar, everything's got to be updated. Everything, your photo, headshot, your bio, and that's hard as a busy speaker to do. So my recommendation is to actually not have a designated page for them. Because think about it, whoever goes to your website is going to be some kind of influencer or have some kind of involvement in the planning process. So your entire website should be geared to them to look through. Some people like to have the speaker kit. Those things are fine, but they have to be updated. That's the key. And once you do get in contact with them, communication is key to them. I would be proactive and say, you might not hire me now, but let me send you what I do. And what they do is they start a file on you. And when they are ready to look at you, it's there, and you might be out traveling somewhere, and if they can't get a hold of you, then you're going to miss the boat. But if you've got some kind of information that they can start with in their hot little hands, you're going to be more memorable in that sense. But the key is not to go into it as I want to be hired, I want to be put up on the stage. We've got to start looking at this as a relationship-based industry. Just like the speaker industry, we're so good at having our relationships, but we're not expanding out to them and starting those relationships. We're inviting them to our news feeds and things like that. Bottom line, they're not reading your e-blasts. They're not reading a lot of stuff because they're so busy. Yeah, they just don't have the time. They just delete your emails or your e-blasts. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time in that area other than building a relationship. And one good way to do that, especially like right now while the hurricane is going on, Florence hurricane, reach out to them and say, hey, just checking to see if you're okay, need anything. That's part of relationship building. And I know this is kind of a tragic time, but it's a very critical, genuine time. And they would appreciate that. And they'll remember you because of it.
And I think too, now, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is an assumption. So I'm saying that this is an assumption. The majority of meeting professionals are women or men?
Well, in that role, majority of them are women, and I don't know the stats on that. But as far as the audience, it's 50-50
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but with my point being that as women, we build relationships. That's what we do. So remember that when you're talking to your meeting professional, the likelihood is that she's a woman and that she wants to build relationships, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And if you're talking gender-wise, women are, of course, are visual. They love compliments. You can, right? You can always build relationships that way. With men, it's a matter of just, giving them less options, like your program descriptions. Give them, one or two at the most. And keep it very simple for them to keep the email conversations short. But face to face is key.
Yeah, exactly. Relationships is, everything. Somebody once asked me here not too long ago, what would you give up? Would you give up your network or your money? Oh, my money, hands down. I'd never give up my network. I'd never give up my relationships.
That's a good point.
Not. So one of the other things too, I think, and I find this a lot when I'm working with faculty, is the proactive and the reactive. So it's not just about, in my world, it's not just about delivering content, educational content. It's also about what you do before and what you do afterwards that serves the audience, that serves the learner, if you will. And so I find that there's starting to be more of a shift, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, with speakers understanding that when you walk off that stage, your job is not done with the audience. It's your responsibility and your obligation to make sure that you follow up and that you invite them and that you help them and that you answer the questions that they ask and that you make yourself available. And you make yourself available before. I think part of the, there's a misconception, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think for speakers and authors and whoever's going into an event where you've been honored with the privilege to serve the audience, I think first of all, people forget that. And second of all, I think that it's your obligation to help support that event by promoting that event. They didn't do you a favor by paying you to come. You did them they've done you a favor by giving you the opportunity to actually present to the audience. I think that's so important. I think people miss that all the time. And I could be wrong, but I believe that that's true.
Yeah, and most people, I totally agree with you. Most people also think that's an added value, but I think it's part of the job.
Exactly.
And I think it needs to be expressed. If you want to get up on the stage, express your involvement when this job does start for you. Here's the thing about what I think speakers can really save themselves on when it comes to technology and not having their fees taken away with all the new technology coming on board. It's really taking advantage of social media and being available. I say get rid of the fan pages because the fan pages are very intimidating for people, and people look at that and you don't look like you're very approachable. I just have a regular Facebook page. If anybody wants to reach me, they can through Facebook. I won't do a fan page. I'll do a business page, but not a fan page. But here's the thing, 41% of meeting professionals are still trying to get their audience to play on social media before, during, and after a meeting.
Yeah.
And it seems as though we, as the speaking community, we are grossly underestimating the power of social media.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with you.
We need to take advantage of it because the media professionals want this because it's free. We should want it because it's not, there's nothing taken away from our fee. We have to think about that. And so they want everybody to play on social media. So if you bring that to the table, that's what you do, they're going to be so appreciative. Now, the number one area that they prefer is Twitter. Twitter's number one, then Facebook, then LinkedIn. They spend about 19% of their time always utilizing some type of marketing effort on social media. They want to increase that. Mostly 20%, case by case, 40%. So they They want to increase those numbers, and the only way to do that is the help of the speakers.
So tell me, Deborah, what's the philosophy or what's the mindset behind Twitter versus Facebook? Because why more Twitter than Facebook? And LinkedIn I understand because it's a very professional audience, but between Twitter and LinkedIn and not Instagram at all.
Yeah, you would think there'd be some Instagram, especially with the younger generation, but believe it or not, the Gen Zs coming in are not as into Instagram as they are in Whisper and other areas. But the Twitter and the Facebook percentages are very close.
Yeah.
I think Twitter's like 39% and Facebook is like 38%. So it's very, very close.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a lot off. So I'm glad you brought that question up because there's not that much difference which direction you go.
Yeah.
So,
I know, like I say, my experience from working in, having extra credits and working with our faculty is that is an obligation that we hold them to. That if you actually want to be part of the faculty, then our expectation is a social play. And if that's not something they're committed to, that's okay. Then it's not necessarily the right opportunity right now for us with them. But social is a huge, it's a huge play. It's a great way for people to really get to know you as an individual, and not your business and what you do for a profession, because I think people forget you are a person first, you are your profession next.
Right. And so it's not a matter of promoting you being there. It's it's the idea of marketing, how to get conversations going, asking questions, reaching out, inviting the audience to you as a person would be the way to do it, instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to be there, see you there. Invite them to have a conversation with you and start inviting, do you have any questions that I can bring up? I've seen that done before and it's brilliant. I've seen more conversations when somebody brings in, invites people into the conversation.
Absolutely. So I've just put up on the screen your Making Speakers Extension Crisis Management Team. This is an article that you wrote that's at the Meeting Magazines. Tell us a little bit more about what we can expect when we open that article.
Well, the beauty of that article is that it's written for meeting professionals. So for any speakers that want to read it, it's a very short read, but to the point of what I'm sharing, how they can work with speakers. So, all my whole mission is to improve that gap between speakers and meeting professionals. And this is one way, if speakers would read this, they'll see what I've been sharing from our perspective for them. And it talks about, terminology, helping speakers understand the terminology and to know that safety and security is important to you. What should a speaker do when they get on site? Where's the command center when something happens? Things like that, and how to share those risk management plans. And I think this article will really help speakers at least open up a dialogue with their clients and what questions to ask.
Excellent. And for those of you who are wanting to break through your barriers, you can reach Deborah as well on DeborahGardner.com. And one last remark, or one closing remark, I need to know, what is the Wedding Crasher story?
Well, that's how I ended up in the meetings industry.
Okay.
Back to the college days again, and being a swimmer, I was always hungry. and some of us swimmers, we'd ride our bikes to and from the pool, to class and everything. And one day we were riding our bikes past a church, and we ended up going in, and they were serving a buffet meal, and we just happened to get in line. When the Wedding Crasher movie came out, it was so funny because it's like literally that's what it felt like. And so that was the way we actually fed ourselves in college. We were only given a per diem, and
I think people need to understand that when you are in a professional sport, you're not making a lot of money doing it.
especially in the swimming profession. But it really helped me, reflect back when I was looking to get into the meetings industry going, oh yeah, I remember how that was set up, how that was run. And I actually took some ideas from that.
I remember
and
having to
learned.
sneak in and out, make sure I had my exit plan down.
Yeah, totally.
Talk about risk
And
management
so
right there.
we were bad. We were bad as college kids, but it was a lot of learning lessons involved. And it's funny how your life revolves around
Yeah.
what you've learned in the past. When you think
Yeah.
you don't, you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
That
it's
your experiences shape who you are throughout your entire life,
yeah,
right? And what you learn from
definitely.
it is even more important.
Definitely. But to help you close, I believe the main point that I want to make for most speakers is the fact that really focus on their relationship before wanting to get up on stage, because today it's a matter of seeing if they're even the right fit for you.
Absolutely.
You got to choose your customers too.
Yeah.
And just because they work for a big name company or organization doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be a right fit for you. And I believe that asking a lot of questions, communicating is huge. If you're looking to get hired and you don't mention that you have, fire up on the stage as part of your act, you're going to be in trouble when they find out, because they're going to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
So communicating everything up front.
Yeah.
Everything up front. And most of all, look at yourself as an investment, not an expense.
Yeah. That's
As
a
an
really nice way
investment.
of putting it, actually.
Yeah. And so that's how you want to get up on the stage is make sure that you explain to them how you're an investment to their event or to their meeting. And they'll look at you differently. And it's all about, the underlining message is have the respect for them. They will respect you.
Yeah.
And that bonding alone will make all the difference in getting you up on the stage.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Deborah, for the opportunity today to have a conversation with you.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Honor.
I believe that you're just evaluating whether or not you're going to be going to North Carolina or not. So good luck with that, considering the hurricane. And you take care of yourself.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure. And again, if anybody wants to elaborate on this conversation or have any questions, by all means, contact me, Deborah at deborahgardner.com. Be delighted.
Thank you.
Thank you.